Ok, hello mấy đứa. Hôm nay thì chị sẽ thử cho mấy đứa ví dụ xem là cách mà mình shadowing cái technique này mình sẽ làm như thế nào nhé. Thì chị đã làm hai cái video, một cái sử dụng Zoom, một cái sử dụng Google Meet. Thì nếu như em sử dụng Google Meet thì sẽ phải tải một cái ứng dụng riêng, một cái gì đấy để có thể record được lại màn hình. Ờ, và khi mà mình làm thì mình có thể bật sub hoặc tắt sub cũng được. Mình có thể vừa nghe vừa dừng lại, pause lại, mình nhắc lại cái mà điều mà người ta vừa mới nói trong video, hoặc mình có thể nói liên tiếp cũng được. Chị thì chị sẽ nói liên tiếp. Ở trong cái video ở Zoom thì em sẽ nhìn thấy cách nói liên tiếp thì khi nghe lại nó sẽ như thế nào. Còn trong cái video này thì chị sử dụng Google Meet nên là khi mà nó quay nó không record lại cái tiếng của cái video nên là sẽ nghe rõ ràng hơn, chỉ có mỗi mình giọng của chị thôi. Thì em có thể dùng thích gì thì dùng đấy cũng được, Zoom hay là Google Meet cũng được, nhưng chị thì chị nghĩ là nên dùng Google Meet hơn nhé. Ok, bây giờ mình sẽ thử. Just because I may present more femme doesn't mean that I am any less they them. You know that feeling when you're eating a meal but you're not You know that thing when you're eating a meal but you're not really eating a meal. You're just kind of picking a foot in the counter. My family was doing that on one night and I just kind of looked at them and I said, I'm non-binary. I don't have a gender. In my opinion, gender is a universe. It's a broad spectrum of planets and stars and sky that truly cannot be contained into a binary. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and that's a non-negotiable. And they were all kind of like, okay. I think one of the main reasons why pronouns are so important is because other than our names, it's one of the main ways that people identify and call us. My pronouns are personally very important to me. Growing up, you mean like enculturated into a kind of a system that really subscribes to toxic masculinity. I was always uncomfortable with being called dude or whatever man. I was so bad at stabbing people up, like how guys like do that, like that thing. I was so bad at that, and I just felt very alienated whenever someone did that to me. When someone identified through the pronoun, they're essentially taking their little piece of that broad universe and identifying with that. So in using their correct pronouns, we're validating that yes, you are right in your identity and you are important and we're respecting you. Coming into terms with my genderqueer identity has been one of the most challenging but also the most rewarding thing that I've done. Laverne Cox kind of famously said, misgendering a trans person is an act of violence. And it is. It's an act of psychological violence. It's a denial of someone's personhood and a complete refusal to acknowledge their identity, whether intentional or not. It's just something that's entirely wrapped around our everyday life. So just walking into a restaurant and hearing someone say she, like, will happen within 2 seconds of me entering, which doesn't happen on one of my I'm sorry. Like, will happen within 2 seconds of me entering me, which doesn't happen to any of my identities. No, like, oh, you're a straight person, that doesn't happen, but automatically someone will make assumptions about gender, would translate into pronouns, which mean that I will hear over again people will say something about my identity which is false. I think a lot of people associate expression with identity, and sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes I'm in situations when I'm not the most safe being able to express my gender identity. And in those cases, even in those instances where I'm wearing basketball shorts or sneakers, you can't take my gender identity away from me because that's mine and not yours. There are so many different options for who you are and how to define that. So when someone chooses a personal pronouns that they identify with, using that pronouns in a form of respect and a form of validation that yes, this is your rightful identity and I will respect that. And I know personally when I get misgendered by strangers, it's one thing, but it's especially painful when it's people who are close to you. So when my parents misgender me, it's a knife in my heart because they are the people whose opinions matter to me more than anybody else's. And not knowing how to combat it It is a constant. It is such a prevalent part of our society that being misgendered happens countless times in a day, and that builds up really quickly, and it can be really difficult for a person to hear over and over again because they invalidate your identity over and over again. Pronouns are important because they are the smallest and easiest way that you can acknowledge someone's identity. And I also don't like that people call them their preferred pronouns because it's also not a preference. It's who they are, and you need to use a setup. It's literally an extension of my arm or my leg. It's just as a part of me as a vital organ. My identity, although you can see it, it still needs to be validated just as much as you would validate the fact that I have 5 fingers or 5 toes. That's it.